My name's Lloyd Swans. I am the field operations manager with Vans. I've been with Vans for about 12 years, looking after all the sandblasting that goes on in the company. We do numerous different sandblasting jobs. We go do everything from small equipment to commercial bridges, line removal. We are the largest line removal company in Ontario, in the province.
Okay.
We do rebar blasting, cleaning of buildings, a lot of commercial jobs, industrial jobs like ROPEC. The OLRT, we're involved in the OLRT profiling concrete for all the old OLRT stations.
OLRT is the light rail that we were
The light
talking
rail.
about? Okay,
Light rail.
got it. And my name's Ed Schmidt. I'm with 10X Engineer Materials, and we're here today with Dan Susi as well with Already Blast and Abrasive. We just appreciate the opportunity and really appreciate the feedback that you gave and just being willing to do a customer testimonial. For transparency's sake, are you being compensated for any of this testimonial?
I am not. I wish I was. Unfortunately, no.
Okay. So before switching to our abrasives, what challenges were you facing with the operations that you described?
I think the two major ones were cleanup and dust control.
Okay.
Are the two major ones. The amount of dust that's used with the product. Everybody, when you sandblast, there's obviously dust, and that was a big issue, especially on the highways or in some smaller confined spaces that we had.
And what product were you using when you were doing that?
We were using black shot,
Okay.
3570 black shot.
Okay.
Even baking soda in some instances, again, dusty. No matter what we used, it was.
Okay. After hearing about the 10X material, initially, what was any hesitancy that you might have had in order to decide whether or not to try the Superoxalloy abrasives? Just anything that as you heard about it as a potential solution for the problems that you were experiencing, what may have been some of your initial thoughts?
I think originally, coming from a products background in the industry, and I've been in it for 45 years, every product that's developed is better than the product that's there. You get a lot of that. So was there hesitancy? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Until we actually physically tried the product, it's very typical, especially when your rep came in and said, you know, it's less dusty, it's faster. Well, I've heard that 100 times in this industry, and it doesn't always pan out. So it was it was more or less, give us some product to use, we'll try it, and we'll take it from there.
Okay. What led you to follow the optimization process that was described? You know, as Dan was explaining to you, here's the proper way to use it.
Exactly.
What led you to follow that, and did you find that information helpful?
Absolutely. The biggest thing for us was before Dan came in, we did in the past, but we changed. We didn't have Thompson valves on our sand pots. So we had to invest and put Thompson valves on every pot, which was in itself a savings. And then, like I said, we basically set up and did exactly as Dan had said and dialed down to 2.5, 3 turns. And we noticed a lot more productivity, a lot less material, and major less dust than what our previous products have had.
That's great. So you're already into the next discussion, which is the results. How has 10X products improved your blasting speeds, quality?
I think we're probably in production. I'm going to say, depending on what we're doing, if we're profiling concrete, we would be 60% faster than what we were previously. Wow. And I would say, and using 40% less product, which is huge in our industry because the cleanup time, the labor cost for cleaning up, and the dust control that we have to have. In the past, sometimes especially on the OLRT in phase 1 from last year, they actually wanted us to scaffold and tarp ourselves in and move scaffolding and rolling tarps, which is absolutely absurd as far as production and trying to get the same pattern when you're working inside a 10 by 10 area.
Oh, so it would have limited the floor space that you were trying to get a specific, I understand.
Absolutely, the profile. So when you move ahead to try and match the stuff that's behind you that you can't see, or the stuff that's ahead of you, the floor that's ahead of you that you can't see, it's almost impossible to match perfectly. Where with this, with no having to tarp,
because of the low dust.
Okay,
I understand.
You can relatively see, and as you note, I don't know if you notice, but generally the guys will walk backwards. So they'll start and they'll walk backwards so they can see everything they profiled as they're walking back. So they can match perfectly. So it was a substantial savings in dust control and having to clean up.
And then because of not having to have that tarping, then you end up with a better aesthetic product at the end.
Absolutely.
Okay.
More even, more controlled.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
That's helpful to know. Folks are often hung up on the price of 10X. How are your blasting costs now that you've switched?
Like I said earlier, I believe that the product itself, probably on an average job, could be $275 more than the old product we were using. But the savings in labor and the savings in costs of having to clean up is 60% less.
Okay.
So it makes up for the cost of the material by double what you're spending on your labor hours to clean up and then, just like I say, having the control of no dust and not having to do labor with the covering. Lots of times we will cover glass and stuff, but when we have to cover things that are 100 feet away because they don't want dust on it, that's where it gets into a lot of costs.
Okay.
You're spending a lot of time. Right now we cover tracks in the OLRT, but just in the area that we're blasting, where before we would have to go 300 or 400 feet more on each end because the dust was traveling and they didn't want dust on the tracks. Well, now you're also cleaning all that up.
Okay.
So now we don't have to. So it's in the big scheme of things on an average job, the
big improvements.
Be a big improvement.
Can you share a specific example of 10X excelling in removing a tough coating or something that was a struggle previously?
Down at Ropec, on the arms at Ropec, there was a coating put on years ago, and we had to strip to bare metal so that we could recoat according to spec. Very tough, rusty, deep rust. Coating itself was off, flaky in some spots, but in some spots it was very well adhered still. Compared to last year's Ropec job that we did previous, we did the same tank, well, a different tank, but the same procedure a year ago. We're probably half as long this year, and we did 2 tanks.
Oh, wow.
In the time that we did 1 last year.
Okay.
So we did a full complete tank in the same length of time.
And these are the ones that you were showing me where it was the arms inside the clarifier and you had to do that whole lattice structure. And okay.
And that, like I said, this year we've done 2 in the same length of time that last year we did 1.
Wow. Yes. That's a significant improvement.
It is.
Are there any other ways that you've seen the product help your business? And is there anything on the sustainability, safety, or environmental performance improvements that have been helpful with what you guys are doing with governments that you have to apply to, or other stakeholders, neighbors, things of that nature?
Lots of bridge work in this area. If it's not MTO, the product has to be safe for environmental reasons. Turtles, birds, nesting, when you're blasting over water, that type of thing. So having the product that's environmentally safe is a big asset, because you don't have to, you still provide protection, you still do everything, but engineers always want
additional certifications.
Absolutely, to make it safe.
Has the higher results or the visual aesthetics that you're attaining with the product helped in any of your marketing, or has the fact that you have a safer process with these materials helped in marketing the services that you provide?
I think in the pipe portion of our business, where we're doing the pipes and they have to be NACE inspected and they are actually measured, it's a big asset, because we get the profile that we want without having to go over it in 2 steps like you said earlier. Because normally what we would do would we would use 2 different products, and we would go over it to smooth it out. In this case, if we do it with your product, we'll get the profiling that we want, and it'll be inspected once and passed.
Would you recommend 10X to others in your industry, and why or why not?
No, I would not, because probably competitors.
Yeah.
No, in all seriousness, if someone asks me, I will 100% tell them the truth.
I appreciate that.
But yeah.
It's funny that you say that. One of our first customers was doing cleanup on a heat exchanger in an oil and gas facility that had a quick turnaround. And after they did the initial test, they then hot-shotted a truck from our location to California, and it worked so well they were able to get back onto schedule. And afterwards, we asked them for a testimonial, and they said, "We're going to keep this as a competitive advantage for a little while. We'll give you a testimonial in a year." But they've been a very good supporter of ours as well. But they did want they wanted the competitive advantage.
We're pretty fortunate in this area. We're probably the largest in the area, and I think we have our fair share of the marketplace. So we're okay.
Yeah, good, great. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank
you for your business.